Here's the problem with coping saws. Unless you want to spend like 160 to 190 bucks, it is hard to find a good one that gets the kind of tension that you need for a coping saw to work well. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make 3 different styles of the same coping saw that are a little bit different aesthetically, and we have set you up for success. Mike Taylor put together a phenomenal kit that even includes the ash-turned handles. There's free plans, free detailed written instructions, and even over on my website, I made templates for you guys to make this super easy. I'm gonna show you several different techniques for making the saws, and then I'm going to give you some coping saw tips at the end, including how to use this bird's mouth. So let's get into the build. We've got everything we need. We have our kits, we have our blades, we got our instructions, our plans. If you purchased the templates, we have templates. It's time to select some wood and mill it up. Like I said, don't need a lot of wood here, only 30 inches long, 1 1/4 inch wide by 1/2 inch thick will do the whole project. So now we need to select our wood. You want to go with straight grain, and straight grain is really important because it's a lot stronger, and when you have these complex shapes, when you're trying to cut those out, less chance of tear out, less chance of breakage. When you put tension on it with this string, makes a big difference if you get straight grain wood. You want to use stuff that you think about they use in tools like birch, ash, hickory, maple. I'm going to try some exotic ones like rosewood and wangi, and we'll see if we break them, and I'll report back to you if they work. So let's quickly mill up some lumber. I won't make you sit through too much of watching me mill lumber, and then we'll get on to the next step. Okay, it is time to cut out blanks for our cheeks. We're gonna wanna leave those square. We're gonna drill our through holes for the blade holder and our mortises for our stretcher. One thing to remember, you're not gonna cut the stretcher to length until the end, so make sure you leave it long because you're gonna need to know the distance between the 2 cheeks down here because that's how long you're gonna want your stretcher to be, and that may vary a little bit depending on how you did on the installation. So our next steps are to cut out blanks for the cheeks. It is important to note here that the cheeks are 1/2 inch thick, but you will still need to do some more thinning for the stretcher, which is 3/8, and the toggle stick, which is 1/4. If you bought the kit without the handles and you have a lathe, it would be a good time to turn those now. But we're gonna leave these square so we can drill our through holes for the blade holders and our mortises for the stretcher. One thing that is important to note on the plans, when you print out full-size plans, this goes for any of my plans or anyone else's plans, you need to click print actual size in Adobe Acrobat. If you do 100%, it's just gonna print 100% of 8.5 by 11, but if you click print actual size, it will give you actual full-size templates. You can see my template here matches that drawing perfectly. And if you do buy my templates, I will have a little hole right here that will fit an awl, so you can get a nice center punch in there, and I will cut out the mortise for you too, so you could line up your 1/4 inch drill press, which will make that really, really easy for you. And then you could also use it as a chisel guide to get nice square shoulders. But let's go ahead and cut these blanks, and then the stretcher we want to worry about last, because depending on how you installed these blade holders here, you're gonna need to do this exact measurement in between, and that may vary a little bit. So you're gonna wanna wait on your stretcher. You could cut it long if you wanted to now, but you'd probably wanna plane it first. So let's get these trimmed up. We're gonna head over to the drill press and drill the holes and cut our mortises. Okay, we've got our blanks, all our joinery done, all our mortise is done. We left them round because we'll round over the edges of our tenon. It is time to shape these guys. And one thing to think about, there's 3 ways to really do this. One is with the templates, you can use a flush trim bit. I'm gonna show you all 3, well, I'll show you 2.5. You can use a flush trim bit, but you have to use something to hold it. You cannot put your hands with this small of a piece near a flush trim bit. So just remember that you do need some work holding. You could use a rasp and a spoke shave. I do not have a rounded spoke shave, so I'm not gonna be able to show you that one, but I can show you a little bit with the rasp. And then the other one is sanding it. If you don't get my templates, you can get these plans, and you can either make your own template by cutting this out and making a template. I'll link a video down below from my friend Sean from Simple Cove. It's a great template video on how to make them. But you would just cut this out, glue it to a piece of MDF, or you can glue it straight to your piece here and just sand down to the line with a spindle sander, or your, whatever tools you have available to you for removing material. If you do the flush trim bit, I recommend trying to clear out some of this waste first with maybe a bandsaw, but I'll show you all three right now. One other thing to consider, and again, I'm gonna refine these templates a little bit and I'll put the holes in I talked about earlier, is Mike, for purely aesthetic reasons, has introduced a taper to the top of the pieces. And you could technically flush trim that, but that's such little material. What I would do is get your shape first and then put this on there and kind of roughly draw the taper out with pencil. And then you could literally use anything, your random orbital sander. You could sand it by hand. You could use a hand plane, which is actually probably what I'll do. That might be the best option. You could use a belt sander, anything to get that shape down and narrow just a little bit. So let's get to shaping these. I'll kind of give you a quick little look into how I would do all three of those techniques. One thing I forgot to mention is when you're putting on your template, you want to make sure that this flat part of your cheek is facing the mortise. All right, let's get to shaping these. All right, so we've got everything shaped. They're looking great. One thing I made a mistake on, like I said, we never hide our mistakes on this channel, is I should not have tried to flush trim around the very tip of some of the, especially the sharp ones. Also, when you're clearing material with a bandsaw, you don't want to leave your template on like I did, because if you hit your template, then it's hard to use in the future. I was being lazy. I didn't even change for my resaw blade. I should have put on a curved small blade. And then I think lastly, between the two techniques of using all sanding versus bandsaw and flush trim, the sanding, it was a little bit easier to get down to the line, but the finish on the flush trim bit was far superior in my opinion. I think it just really came out a lot nicer and more consistent. The kit comes with, like I showed you earlier, string, and then it comes with these pins, and there's a threaded washer and one leather washer, cushion, or whatever you want to call it. The threads fit easily into the handles, but if they don't, you don't want to hit them with a hammer because you could damage the slot in there for the blade. You want to use some squeeze clamps to get them home. You do want to give a brief sanding to the washer side that's going to hit the handle, and then you want to clean the threads with some alcohol or acetone to make sure the epoxy sticks. You could use Total Boat 5-minute epoxy or the Total Boat high performance slow setting epoxy. Slow setting probably will give you a much stronger bond, but I think the 5-minute will be fine. But I guess we'll find out by the end of this video. So we're gonna go ahead and get this glued up. Like I said earlier, you do not wanna cut your stretcher yet. You want to wait until you get the exact measurement between these two, which you'll do once your epoxy is cured. You can go ahead and insert them and measure the distance between them with a blade installed. And then you know exactly how long to the shoulders of your stretcher, and you remember that your mortises should be about 7/8 inch deep per the plans. And again, all this is in the instructions, so if you're reading that, you'll be able to reference that and see exactly how these go together. So let's clean these up with a little sandpaper and get these glued up, and then get everything put together and glued up for today. And then tomorrow, once everything is totally cured, we'll be able to insert our little toggle stick here and our string and test these things out. Those came out so cool. I love the different color contrast, the exotic wood, and I love the fact that for 30, 35 bucks, you can get a coping saw that gets this pitch. That's incredible. That is like a good saw. And I'm gonna show you some tips on how to use it here in a second. I just want to go over the string install really quick because there is a little bit of a trick to it. Wrap it about 4 times around, and what I did was I just kind of wrapped it loosely, and then I tied my knot really loose, and then I kind of just evened all the threads out. This string is so strong, so it's not gonna break, but you could twist it strong enough to break your saw. And then what you wanna do is just twist it up. You know, it depends on how many wraps. I went 4 times around with the string. You could probably get 5, but 4 is good. And you just wrap it, and you can kind of like listen to the pitch of the saw tighten up. And then when you start to get it like a decent amount of resistance, you can push it through all the way down so that it catches, and then you're good to go. And if you feel like you're gonna break it, but it's not gonna end here, like this is pointing up when you feel like you're gonna break it, take it out and then stick it in the other way, like flip it 180 and do it, and you should end up just perfect. But these came out incredible. Let's go talk about some good coping saw techniques. So I'm gonna show you something really cool called a bird's mouth here in a second, but one of the most common things that I use a coping saw is for clearing out waste in dovetails, and here's my terrible attempt at cutting a dovetail with the wrong type of saw. One thing I don't know if I mentioned is the teeth go one way, so you only cut in one direction. I use pull saws, Japanese saws, so I install these with the teeth facing me towards the big handle. If you are a Western guy or gal, you'd want to face it with the teeth towards the small handle because you're going to be used to cutting on the push stroke. But one of the most important things about coping saws is they're really great at making curves and turning, but they will not turn if you are not cutting. So you can't go down to the bottom of the dovetail and then roll your saw over. You have to do it while you're moving. Another great tip is to use the whole blade. If you're just cutting like a little bit, you're not gonna make much progress. Once you start to cut this way, keep an eye on the saw and treat it like the horizon. If you know that it sort of is perpendicular to your board, you'll know that you're cutting 90. So the way where the back of the saw is where your blade's gonna cut. This design of these saws is great because these will rotate, so you can actually turn your blade so that if your board was longer than the back of your saw, you could actually turn your blade so it was 45 degrees and you'd still be able to cut this way. We've got it nice and tight. You wanna be listening for this sound, kind of a high-pitched, nice kind of string musical sound. You wanna remember, you have to turn as you cut. So you let the saw guide, but see, I tried to turn there and it didn't work. But now, okay, now I'm sideways and I want to use the whole blade. Wow, that works amazing. This is the first time I've used one of these. Oh, I went a little below the line there. You can hear when you get to the end of your cut. Wow, I didn't really try and cut that straight, but I got it pretty good. That would be good enough to chisel out some dovetail waste. So that's kind of some good tips for cutting with a saw. But let's talk about a tool that works amazingly with a coping saw called a bird's mouth. Now these are bird's mouths, plural, or a bird's mouth is what they're called. And it's basically just a 1/2-inch hole with a slit in it. These date all the way back to Rubo and probably beyond. And it essentially just consists of a 90-degree piece that goes into your vise, or you can see this is one where you get like a match fit clamp and you can clamp it to a workbench, but they go in your vise. Now, there's a couple schools of thought. Sometimes people will make smaller ones like this, which sit about here, and then sometimes people will make really tall ones, and that's to get it up near your face. And what it's for, let me show you, it's designed to be able to cut tight curves so you can see what you're doing. In fact, jewelers use these for making jewelry. And so if you wanted to cut, you know, a tight circle, you could clamp this piece to your workbench, and then you're able to see exactly what you're doing because it's up by your face. So these allow you to cut really tight corners or tight shapes, or, you know, it's essentially like a manual scroll saw. Cut out patterns, letters, all sorts of inlay if you wanted to. It's a good little jig to use, and certainly is an accessory to a coping saw that can be very useful. These are made out of poplar. Anything that is tall, you're gonna wanna have some 90-degree supports in. This is kind of a fancy one. You want to add screws because there is a lot of pressure on these when you're using them in a vise, a lot of up and down cutting motion and things like that. So it's definitely useful to have it be very, very strong. Man, these just came out unbelievable. And You know, the one thing that still blows me away is the sound, the pitch. This is how like you can tell your bandsaw is tight or tell if a coping saw is good. If you can get this high-pitched noise out of it, that means you got it really taut, and it's going to cut well. And that's the problem with coping saws, is they only work if they don't flex. And when you buy these cheap ones, like they just flex, they're terrible, and they don't do the job you want them to do. And then if you want one that is going to be tight, like this, you got to spend 160 to 190 bucks for one of these, and that's crazy for a saw that you only use for joinery and cutting out tight shapes. So this is a great project for like under 35 bucks. You can build this whole thing. The kit that Mike put together worked so well. He really did a good job with this one, just like he did with the marking gauge build. That was super fun too. He really knocked it out of the park. He's got free plans, free detailed written PDF instructions, like 14 pages, as well as the kit over on his website. And if you don't want to buy the handles, if you have a lathe, you can turn those yourself. I made templates for you if you want to go the flush trim route, which I really liked because it gave it a great finish. I didn't have to do much sanding afterwards. Like I was saying earlier, I made the templates really easy for you to find out where the mortise and the through hole is. Guys, this was so fun, and there is nothing better than using a tool that you made yourself. Plus, it works really, really well. I loved using it. It works great, but as good as my new concept saw for sure. So go make this, and if you want to support the channel, head over to the Katz-Moses store, pick up these templates or something else. We're adding a lot of great tools over there. Head over to Tay Tools, get the kit, and stay safe in the shop, guys. Have a wonderful day.